Hi y'all, and welcome back to my channel. And welcome back to part 2 of a video that actually did a lot better than I thought it would. I put that shiz out and I was like, oh, okay, y'all like it when I get nasty. And I even had a moment because your girl, Smoky Glow, was like, I'm gonna do this video. And I was like, bless so much. Was having a real fangirl moment. So we are doing part 2 of the ranting about, in my opinion, the ugliest palettes to be released. Clearly, this shiz is horrendously subjective. If I talk about a palette that you think is the most beautiful, the magnum opus of your collection, then that is fantastic. You keep doing you, boo-boo. But for me, these are my own thoughts. This is my personal whatevers that I am putting out there. I'm just taking it all out, and I mean, we're taking it all out and shooting it. But we're taking it all out and talking about it in the most honest, raw, and hyperbolic way that I possibly can. If you have not seen part 1, I will try my best to leave it linked down below, though you all know that 99.99999% I forget. I apologize for that. I'm trying to be better. But let's just go into talking about some of the ugliest palettes in my opinion. We're going to talk about a palette that I believe I have anti-hauled that shiz straight off the bat. I believe I've talked about it in a makeup we didn't ask for. And this shiz is definitely ugly. Benefit, which is a company that doesn't really pull on my heartstrings or anything in that sort of way. You know, they release stuff and I'm like, oh, okay. Their aesthetic and their products don't really do anything to make my heart go pity-pat. And they decided to release the Party Like a Flockstar palette. Y'all, this shiz is not only an example of disgustingly wasted space, it is also an example of, I feel, what was the brain person behind coming up with this. Because you got the palette, and I anti-hauled it, and I was offended because it just looked stupid. The name was dumb. It wasn't thought out. There was wasted space. There were just a lot of things going on this thing for me to be like, that's dumb. And then one of y'all were like, yeah, I really hate the fact that this many of those shades up top are lip products. And I said, what? Say what? Yes, boys and gals, theys and thems. Benefit decided to commit the sin of producing a palette with powder products and liquid products all up in one, without being kind enough to give us a little flap, which a lot of creators have turned on to. That makes me very happy inside. But Benefit, let's be real, doesn't exactly have the market cornered on thoughtful innovation. And I hate this palette on so many levels. With this list, I get very personal. These are my thoughts, my opinions. I'm scrolling through Trend Mood and I'm just like, I hate that. I just on a base level, I hate it. Not even because it's like conventionally ugly. I just look at it and I'm just like, there are no any kind of niceties about this shiz. And then if we're talking about a palette that I hate, and probably a palette that signaled the downfall of this company for me, Urban Decay, with the ever so misleading tagline of beauty with an edge. More like beauty with the edge of a dull butter knife. And they were like, alright, Macy's wants us to come up with some shiz for them to sell just at their store. And they decided to concoct up the Light Beam palette, which is this little, I believe it had 5 shades. This pasty, awful, ugly, oddly curated travesty of a palette. I mean, your girl don't even shop at Macy's. That ain't my thing. But y'all, Urban Decay done did Macy's wrong with this shiz. And especially if you're gonna go out there, you're gonna be like, we're gonna name this Light Beam. And I'm like, yeah, All right, I'm into it. Outer space, give me all that shiz. Give me some light beam. Give me some laser beams. Give me some intergalactic realness. And they deliver one of the most pitiful, piddly, sad-looking color stories ever. Macy's came to Urban Decay, and Urban Decay literally went and said,
"Alright, what you got in the back that we can put in this shiz and sell it?"
It was just not attractive, not well done. Like I said, light beam. And I'm like, okay, you got like 2 shimmers up in there with this stupid corally, peachy, pasty grayness. I ain't gonna be creating any sort of out of this world looks with this thing. I mean, maybe out of this world, not in a good way. Like they're gonna want to take me out of this world and shoot me because I don't see anything good coming from that palette. It was just this sad, pitiful little blip on the Urban Decay radar of unnecessary, useless shiz. Okay. This next one isn't necessarily color story, although y'all know your girl isn't so much rainbow palette. Let's just throw every single color all up in there and call it a beautiful color story because it has all kinds of bright colors in it that I love. If I'm gonna get bright colors, I like that shiz to be curated and expertly laid out for me. Don't just throw some things in that's like you got a yellow, you got a pink, you got a green, you got a blue. Let's call it fantastic and beautiful. And so Too Faced, a fantastically repeat offender on this and many of my other series on this channel, they're like, all right, what do people want? People want a festival-themed, unicorn-influenced collection. And as such, the horrifyingly glitter-infused collection of Life's a Festival was released. I have talked mad shiz about several of the products all up in this. And they released a palette that, while not offensive on first look, I know there are quite a few people who enjoy this palette, and that is amazing. I am so happy for you. But you look at that thing, and I get irritated. Y'all know I do. I get me some agita when I am confronted with any sort of company that the way that they sell or the way that they create a palette is they literally take a big box of single eyeshadows that's got like a salt and pepper shaker. It's got little holes in the bottom of it. And they're like, all right, it's time to curate a new palette. And instead of sitting down and having a long, in-depth conversation about the market, what's trending, what's interesting, what do people want, let's create a lovely layer of depth, they take the box and they shake it until a whole bunch of different shades fall out of the bottom of it, and they're like, all right, we got 15 of these things. Put it in some cutesy packaging and sell it and call it a festival. I mean, if you're even thinking about, being at a festival. No, it's not a festival. It is sweaty. It is confused, and it is covered in glitter. And that is a perfect metaphor for this train wreck travesty of a collection. This was like peak Too Faced releasing whatever the shiz they wanted. They just did a giant middle finger to the community, to other brands, and said, you know what? This train has gone off the rails. We are completely off of it, and we ain't gonna try to get back on it. We're just gonna ride this crazy train forever, and we are going to release whatever the friggity frack we want, and all the bystanders are just gonna be like, okay, all right, I mean, you do you. Okay, I'm going to talk about one that may give me some heat, though probably not during the current climate. We're going to talk about a Jeffree Star palette. Y'all know your girl loves some of her Jeffree Star shiz. And y'all are probably thinking, well, what palette? Obviously you love Blood Sugar, Bloodlust, we've talked about already. Blue Blood, we're going to talk about Jeffree X Shane Conspiracy palette, which I have said before, if this color story, if this collection had not had Shane's name attached to it and Jeffree was just releasing it all like, oh look, it's a new Jeffree Star collection, he would have been dragged for filth. People would not have been okay with this. People would have not have been all like, well, it makes no sense because it's Shane. Looking at this color story, it suffers from a certain sense. You ever have when you go into something, you're doing The Sims, and you just click randomize on their outfit? That's how they created this palette with a few things thrown in to make it pertinent to Shane and his life. You got the pink for Trisha. You know, I have this palette. Give me just a moment. You got the pink for Trisha. We got the orange for the Cheetos. We got the root beer. Diet Cola is the silver. And then we just sort of supplemented it with whatever the frig we wanted. Yes, this palette has some nice shades going all up in it. You know, I do like this shade. I think that shimmer is very pretty. That shimmer is very pretty. You know, but all in all, people, this is a color story that does not exude any sort of concise theory, which, I mean, maybe that can play into the whole aesthetic of Shane Dawson. But like I said, if Jeffree had come out with this and been all like, hey y'all, this is my new palette, people would not have given it the leeway that they did because it was a Shane and Jeffree collaboration. Not only just for the color story, but for the formula. This is not the formula that I know and love. This is something else. Maybe that's part of the conspiracy, that I don't know what kind of formula this is, but it's not what I'm used to having. And so, with looking at it, I mean, yes, I bought it. I bought into the hype. It was a Jeffree Star product. It was a Shane Dawson thing and all that sort of situation. But looking at it now, I mean, even looking at it then, it's nothing that I feel inspires a huge amount of creativity. I mean, yeah, sure, you could be like, oh my goodness, look at all those various colors. Look how artistically minded you have to be to comprehend the level of intricacies, intricate, intricacies. I'm having a stroke. You need to have a degree to understand the intricate whatevers of this palette. I mean, I saw people using this shiz left and right when it was released, and even before we had all the issues coming down, raining down on us from below, from above heaven, I did not see this palette be one that people were consistently reaching for, going, yes, this color story is my end all be all whatever. I absolutely love it, and it's a palette that I use every single blinking day. If I hadn't paid so much money for this, if I hadn't gone through what I did for this, I probably would have decluttered it by now. And I'm just putting it out there that if you are interested in this color story, I believe there is the Carroty Picante palette, which, if still available, is basically this palette. And then there's also the Morphe Main Event palette, which I find funny was released after they stopped selling this. But it's not an attractive palette, and I hate to be the one to say it, but I'm gonna be the one to say it. Okay, this next one is sort of I do a lot of sort of this like, it's ugly, maybe not on the first initial whatever, but it's ugly when you think about what it could have been. You know, what sort of effort could have been put into the creation of this particular palette. And so Colourpop, in their great, I'm not even sure what, they were like, hey, you know what people really like? Sailor Moon. We're gonna release a Sailor Moon collection that's never gonna stay in stock ever, and we're never gonna actually give an actual amazing re-release of it that's going to satisfy everyone. But you girl, I like Sailor Moon, say it ain't so. And when you look at this palette initially, you think, oh yeah, pretty guardian Sailor Moon. It's got like a nice little sunshiny yellow. It's got a nice little pink. It's got a nice little purple. You know, it's got those basic nice little pretty princessy Sailor Guardian magical girl colors, which on the outside looks like it could work. Yeah, sure, that's thematic. But if we're going from a creative point of view, like from a very basic, we look at Sailor Moon, she's right there. We'll use this as an example. So we've got Sailor Moon, this is her Sailor Scout outfit. We got the yellow, red, blue. I understand the pinks and the purples are very thematic to a certain degree, but if you think about through the series, you're like, yeah, pink is a thing, but it's more Chibi Moon's thing, not Sailor Moon's thing. I feel like with this color story, they just took the easy way out. They were like, throw some light, kind of faint, ethereal, magical, pretty, princessy shades in here and call it a day, rather than actually delving into the color theory of Sailor Moon herself, the other Sailor Scouts, or even just the anime on a whole. There is so much more depth and breadth of color in that show that really wasn't showcased in this. And I admit that is a very personal thing. Maybe not everyone thinks that deep about it. It is just makeup after all. But I feel like when you are going to go with a theme, it behooves you to go so much more than just skin deep. That's what makes a collection memorable. That's what makes it more than just another Colourpop release, which quite frankly, to me, as much as I love Sailor Moon, that's what this collection has become to me because I can't get my blinking hands on it. But that aside, I just feel like there could have been so much more effort put into the eyeshadow palette than putting some pretty, faint, pretty colors in it. You know, we could have gone all in and we could have had a row for each Sailor Scout. We could have had a blue row, could have had a green row, could have had some yellows and oranges. We got the red with Sailor Mars, got Tuxedo Mask, we got Sailor Moon, we got all kinds of whatever. It could have been a much more interesting thing. Like I said, I reiterate, I just feel like Colourpop took the easy way with this, and rather than put any thought into what they were actually presenting, aside from the packaging, they just slapped some shades all up in here, put it in really cute, shifty, whatever Sailor Moon packaging, and said, sell it. And that shiz sold. Although the eyeshadow palette is one of the products that does remain in stock, partly because the quality isn't exactly what they typically have. When it comes to pastels, for some reason Colourpop just doesn't have it down. So I'm not doing this just because I'm salty about not having the collection. I'm doing this coming from a very hot-blooded Sailor Moon fan that palette could have been so much more than what it was. Yeah, on face value, yeah, it's pretty. It's like Sailor Guardian, Magical Girl, but it doesn't really have any depth or any oomph. It doesn't just have any staying power. It's just frittering away like the soft colors it has inside of it. We're gonna talk about another one that's very subjective. This is me. This is what I'm looking for in makeup. I've purchased this, I've decluttered it, I've roasted it, I've discussed it. And we're gonna do that shiz again today for y'all, because as much as Too Faced likes beating a dead horse, I too enjoy beating a dead horse over their products. And we are talking about the Too Faced companion palette to the Peachy Mattes. They decided to come out with the white peach. And now I am gonna say I feel like Too Faced in their management, in their research department, you know, they come in, they send their people out into the world to figure out what the market needs or wants. And they have these people who come in and they're like, you know what people want eyeshadows based off of? White chocolate and white peaches? When you start with that sort of color theme, it's not like you have a lot of places to go. And as such, Too Faced then decides that, you know, well, there really isn't anything we can base this on, so let's create an artistic interpretation of what we think a deconstructed white peach would be. Because I'm sorry, I do not believe the shiz. I do not hold stock in the whole, oh, well, it's a companion, accompanying what is ugly. It's ashy. It's pasty. And the old, like, they were like, oh, well, this one has shimmers, because the peachy mattes was all mattes, obviously. And the shimmers sucked. Oh, my stars. You couldn't get any depth. You couldn't get any staying power. I feel like the white peach palette was the writing on the wall for what we were going to get with the white chocolate bar palette, which is this pasty, unpigmented, powdery, horrible layout palette, where it's just this sad, pitiful, just pale, pasty, unattractive color story that we market with this cutesy, adorable little aesthetic. I mean, the packaging, that beautiful white to purple ombre. Where were those light purples? You know, they had like that bruised purple. We had a black with glitter in it. I didn't see it as being a palette on its own. It didn't bring much to the table, and it didn't really do anything for enhancing the experience of using the Peachy Mattes, which was a palette that could stand on its own. It didn't need any help. It was fine. It didn't need it. The Too Faced doesn't know how to say no. Maybe they feel sorry for these people coming in with these ideas, and they're like, behold, a white peach for which we to find inspiration from. And Too Faced is just over there, you know, we can't really say no to him, so I guess we gotta run with it now. It's a white peach. White!
White!
You know, you're not getting a lot of depth and definition when you're starting out with, like I said, white chocolate, white peach. Just, you know, but why? The results have been pasty, gnarly, unattractive color stories, and it doesn't help that the fact that both of those palettes, in my opinion, had subpar formulation compared to even typical Too Faced palettes, which doesn't have my favorite eyeshadow formula. So when you're setting the bar low and then you go even lower below the bar, that's not good. Okay. Again, this next one is subjective, and this has mostly less to do with color story and more to do with configuration, and I understand there's going to be like a reason behind it, but having a reason, if you watch any kind of like fashion show, any kind of art, whatever, you know, having to explain it doesn't make it better. You know, they get all up on the letter and they're like, tell us about this travesty of a look. And they're all like, well, my mother came off the boat from this particular place and this showcases her journey. And then my dad left for the army. You know, that doesn't make it any better. So we have the Urban Decay plus Kristen Leanne, which I have issues with Kristen Leanne as a person, but as Nadie likes to say, we're talking about the products, not the people behind them. And it is this mishmash of varying colors. And I am aware now, I believe I anti-hauled it then, and I had a lot of people, well, it's a kaleidoscope, and it's supposed to be all the different shapes that you get in a kaleidoscope. You know, kaleidoscopes give me headaches too. And so I feel like when it comes to this, like if Urban Decay had taken this particular color story and they had put it in a normal palette formation without a circle, a square, some rectangles, I think maybe a triangle, you know, we then couldn't say anything if they had it just in a straight palette format. We could then talk about the sort of mishmash color story and how it didn't really make a lot of sense. Whereas if we put it in a bunch of crazy pans and whatever and just throw it all up in there and call it a kaleidoscope, people can't be like, well, the color story is weird because the whole palette is one big, giant, swirling, sliding, catastrophic kaleidoscope. Apparently the quality was bomb ding diggity fiznit. Apparently the whole collection, I have the little highlighter trio, absolutely love it. But I hate it. Like, let's take an eyeshadow and let's put it and press it into the most stupid pan shape that ever existed. Let's not only do that, let's take a whole bunch of stupid shapes and put it into one palette and then bank it on being a kaleidoscope. No. I don't want you to impress me with your eyeshadow forms. I want you to give me concise color stories. I want you to give me artisticness. I want you to give me good, solid formulas. Don't sit there and tell me that the extent of your artistic whateverness is being like, I'm gonna make a star, I'm gonna make a triangle eyeshadow whateverness and put it all up in here with all these other things, and that is innovation. It's not. It's annoying, it's headache inducing, and it actually makes the cost of your products go up because it's more complicated to make. I just didn't like it. I didn't like it for so many reasons, and I know a lot of people liked it, and it was a very underrated collection that apparently had amazing quality, but it's not anything that made me happy inside. If anything, it made me upset, clearly, or else we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But that is all the time I have for this particular incarnation. I've got enough to do another one, so considering, how well the first one did, we'll see how this one does. You're probably gonna see me do this a third time. Like always, would love to hear y'all's thoughts on these palettes down below. It is all sorts of subjective. And let me know a palette that you think is absolutely butt ugly. Maybe it's one of the ones that I love. When I do this thing, karma will eventually come around and bite me in the butt. But thank you guys so much for watching. I love you, and as always, keep it real. Mwah!